In this video, we'll take a look at taxes in WP e-commerce. So we go over here under our store settings and we're going under the taxes tab. Now the first thing you need to do, because it's not on by default, is to turn on your taxes. And it will warn you, if I go over here to one of my products, it will actually warn you that taxes are not enabled, by the way. So if you happen to forget, you'll see that on every product. So let's turn on the taxes here. Now we've got a number of choices here affecting all of our taxation issues. Product prices are tax exclusive. Now this is normally how things operate on a store. In other words, you don't include the tax. That all gets added later at the end. However, you can turn on tax inclusive pricing, and it will separate the tax at the very end for you. So the total price will be there plus the tax and then the subtotal, so to speak. But typically you're going to want tax exclusive. People don't like to see taxes in there. Product specific tax. Now in this particular case, you can decide how it's going to work if you've got taxes that work just for one product or one group of products. Okay. Add per product tax to the tax percentage if it's got a specific tax rate, or replace the tax percentage. Okay, in other words, are you going to add on to some other tax rate this specific product tax rate? And by default, it says it's going to replace it. So that might be meaning I've got one product that's taxed one way compared with all my other products. That way it's going to replace that overall taxation. Or if it's something that adds on to an existing tax, then you would check off this box here. All right, tax logic. Who's this going to apply to? Now, people can have separate billing and shipping addresses, of course, and it's going to depend on how you do this. Now, typically, it's the billing country that gets taxed a certain way, and you might be shipping it somewhere else to another country or another area. That way, if you do have to apply taxes based on the shipping, you can check this off. But by default, it's going to base all its taxation on the billing country. Now is when we come to the place to add tax rates. So you click this and you get a little area here to add. Now in this case, for Canada, we have a generic tax here of 5% for all markets in Canada. So let's grab Canada here. There we go. And now it shows me my provinces, but in this case, it's all the provinces. So I'm going to set it there, and I'm going to apply it to shipping. That's the other thing. GST, it's called, is applied to shipping. So there's 5% for all of Canada. Now, in British Columbia, my province, we have our own provincial tax rate, and it's 7%. So here's how I might go ahead and enter this. So I find Canada here. And I choose British Columbia. There we go. Doesn't apply to shipping. This provincial tax doesn't apply to shipping. So I've got my two rates there. Now this is how I think of it, is I've got all of Canada and then I've got a special tax for British Columbia as well. So let's go see what happens here. So I get my checkout. I just hit recalculate shipping because it basically does the whole page for me. All right, so I come down here and I see my tax is $5.95. Now, 5% plus 7% is 12%, and clearly $119, I should be more than $5.95 for my tax. Plus, I don't see two taxes there. I should see my 5% and my 7% split out because they're two separate taxes. Well, the reason is, it turns out, because I'm in British Columbia, it doesn't actually compound these. So that was my first instinct. That's the way I tend to think of these. And this is why taxes can be complicated, because there's so many variables and so many different ways of doing things. It turns out the way you want to work this is, if I've got an exception for British Columbia, adding on another 7%, what I have to do here is combine my 5% with my 7%, because basically what it's saying is, oh, you're in British Columbia, okay, ignore the other taxes, any other taxes. I might have 3 other tax rates here. Just ignore them all, only do the one that specifies British Columbia because that's where I'm located. So what I'd have to do here is put in 12%, add up the two, and then when I save changes, I go back over to here, I recalculate, and now I get my rate. There we go, 1020. Okay, so that's making sense. Now I've got my 12% on there. That's just the way this program works. It doesn't have compounding taxes, and that's fine. You just have to figure out what you need to do to make yours work. Notice here that I just said all markets. That includes British Columbia. This is going to override that one, okay, because I've gotten very specific here. So there isn't a situation where you would actually exclude British Columbia here. It does that automatically by having a separate tax rate that's for British Columbia. I could do the same if there was another province that had a very specific rule. I would combine my 5% plus their 7% or 6% or whatever it might be, combine it, specify it's for that province, and it would override this one up here. So that's how tax rates work. And again, you're going to have to figure out in your particular situation how to use these tax rates to your advantage for your particular country. Now, there's another one called tax bands, and that's an unusual situation on a per product basis. I'm going to cover that in a separate video.